Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream. Happy Monday. I got off for lunch a little bit later than usual today, but was trying to deal with some technical stuff, especially, and I was trying to load up this Minecraft thing too. Um, and that was taking a little bit longer. I think I need to get a new laptop or something that can like run stuff a lot better because this is my like 6-year-old laptop at this point that I had like starting college. So at some point I'll need to get a new one, but money comes, money goes. I I proposed to my girlfriend actually last week, so um, I am out quite a bit of money for the ring and for like a lot of moving stuff happening lately. So definitely not the time to buy a new laptop, but um, yeah, but it was exciting. I went to Yosemite during the past week, hung out there. Didn't upload any shorts, didn't do anything for this channel, didn't really prep any content because I typically try to stream once a month. So I decided to make this my streaming week just because I knew with all the hassle of everything, getting back home yesterday, I definitely did not have time to write a script, and then this morning just getting back to work as usual and catching up on things. There's no time to write a script during all that. But yeah, it's good to be back. Hopefully we can get a few people in for this stream. Feeling good, feeling happy. It's crazy. I started this channel like middle of November last year, which is started posting on this channel again middle of November last year, and it's crazy to think that it's still been just doing something every week, getting something uploaded, whether it's a math video or a religion video or one of these streams. Like every single Monday, it's been consistent. I feel relatively proud of myself for that. Obviously, by God's grace, was I able to do that. And I'm starting to see things pick up a little bit of momentum. Apparently, my old nemesis Nick Fuentes mentioned me in some live stream or some. I haven't actually seen the clip, but I've seen a lot of people commenting under my videos about it. Um, People coming back, coming and watching my videos again, and the math videos doing really well. Um, and I think yeah, that the fundamental theorem of arithmetic one did extremely well, and I think the next week's or next math video I do also has the potential to do really well as it's on a topic that's pretty common, pretty popular. We're going to be talking about the why there's an infinite number of primes, which actually in so there's this whole concept of I think it's a so I have this math book that goes over like all of these different proofs. It's called Proofs from the Book, and basically the main idea of it is that like Paul Erdos, famous mathematician, basically would had this concept of the book, which is where God has this perfect collection or maintains all like the perfect proofs of math theorems. And in this book, the very like this book was written by these guys whose names I'm not going to try to pronounce. And it was supposed to be like kind of based on that concept of the book that Paul Erdos talked about, where like God has all of the perfect proofs for every mathematical theorem written down, and it just goes through like some of the most popular proofs. And actually, the first one in this book is the like proofs of the infinity of primes. Let's see if that shows up. And then obviously the first one is like the famous one from Euclid, where it like a lot of these proofs tend to be like assume that there's a finite number of prime numbers. And then we're number theory through inquiry book that I've been going through. That was my number theory textbook in college that I really enjoyed. But yeah, I feel excited about that video. I feel like it has similar applicability and similar like popular level math grasping content to what like my intro to proofs video did, because that one blew up as well. That one did very well. And then also my fundamental theorem of arithmetic video. So hopefully the next one can do well. Interspersed in there, there's still going to be that Christian content because I really do enjoy making that. That's sort of me learning rather than teaching. The math is me, like I've learned all this math. I really want to just continue diving deeper into it and then just kind of maintaining that level of knowledge and by teaching it versus more of my Christian content is me being kind of new to this subject, really trying to learn it through producing presentations and through doing research for these presentations and just thinking things through. So very different types of content, but I want it. I think it's helpful to kind of unify that on one channel because it really gives a full picture of like it's kind of my sandbox where I can express myself creatively and just continue learning. So that's kind of why I want to keep it on one channel and then not make it entirely focused on one or the other. I think for me, for my own learning and intellectual development, just having both of this type of content on one channel, while it might not be most optimal for growth, I think that's probably best for me and for my own just intellectual development, because that's really what I want the channel to be, is just documenting my own intellectual development, producing something like these math lessons that can be, I mean, helpful for generations upon generations. Like these concepts are never going to get old. They're never going to die out. Like people are not going to stop caring about number theory, and they're not going to stop learning the introductory concepts in number theory. So just having those sort of things, like having theoretically the potential for something that can outlive me and continue giving people value through these lectures. Obviously, it might not be like that. Like I'm not a genius mathematician by any means, but hopefully it's things that can provide value. That's what I want to make my channel about. And same with learning Christianity. I was watching a Jordan Cooper video where he was talking about like thinking about his motivations for making content, and he was talking about how sometimes he feels this urge to like dive into something that is politically, or maybe not politically, but like in the whole like drama of the internet might be relevant at that time, or with some news story that might be relevant at that time. And he feels like he should shy away from that and focus on like asking the question when you make a video, like, is this something that will matter like 20 years down the line? Will this still be relevant? And I want my content to kind of focus on that more so, because I think that's going to be most helpful for me and my own development, but it's also going to help viewers and help people understand like this learning process that I'm going through, and then and continue to learn with me, and then but not get so caught up in like the day-to-day noise that comes around these types of subjects. I think Christianity, politics, all of that can get very caught up in the day-to-day noise of things, especially like when you're producing stuff for the internet, for online content, for all of that. I think it can be very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, whereas I'd rather be focusing on learning things and producing content that just continues throughout generations. Oh, Bennett just said hi in the chat. Hey, Bennett, how's it going? I think you commented on one of my videos talking about collab potential. I haven't had time to check out your channel yet, but I'd be interested potentially if we wanted to talk about who knows what. I don't know necessarily what you had in mind, but if we wanted to talk about anything here, feel free. I don't have time necessarily for a long call right now, just because I do these live streams more over like a lunch break, but we could set up something when you're free, potentially. But just feel free. There should be a Discord link down below. You can join my Discord and we can set up a conversation there. But yeah, things are going well. Glad things are going good for you too. But yeah, I know I got a lot more engagement recently. I think a lot of people commenting like, oh, they heard Nick mention me in a video recently and talk about how I became Christian. Now it's nice that people, I guess it's good to get attention on those videos. I don't like the way Nick Fuentes uses Christianity. I think there's sometimes too much of a political focus on certain things, and I like a lot of Trent Horn's critiques of him actually. But I don't really want to dive into the whole Nick Fuentes rabbit hole, and critiquing all of that again, because then people just brigade. People love to brigade, and people love to yeah. It's a whole thing. But yeah, that's that. I mean, that's what my channel was before. I was really like trying to play into that and like get all this attention. I loved all the attention. I loved all the comments and all of that. I think I enjoyed arguing with people at the time, but I don't know how healthy diving deep into that drama and that controversy again is. I don't know if I want to associate super deeply with Nick Fuentes on this channel anymore. Though that is, I mean, it is obviously a big part of what my channel was, and it was debating those people. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a little bit, especially just seeing a lot of that content or a lot of those comments coming in. I think there's a temptation to kind of dive back into that and like try to look for what Nick Fuentes said about me, or try to collaborate with Fuentes and Fuentes fans and stuff like that. But it's not really the type of content that I want to make. It feels a little bit grifty, especially since I don't really agree with him about on Christianity or politics or any of that even now. We could do a quick call theoretically. Reach out to me on Discord and we can potentially chat. Let's see. I haven't looked into your channel very much yet, so let me. Saying it's not political. Okay, I'm curious. Let me pull up my Discord. If you've joined, I can send you like a Google Hangouts link maybe. We can try to set up something. Let me. Yeah, we could potentially do a quick chat though. Let me see if I can create like a Google Hangouts room or a Discord call or something. I don't know. Sometimes it's weird when you try to stream and then chat at the same time, but my computer's being really annoying right now as well. So let's see. But what did you want to talk about? That's what I'm curious about. Let me see. Yeah, feel free to jump into Discord and message me, and then we can potentially chat. I haven't got anything on Discord from you yet, so we can talk there potentially. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I want to talk about today? I don't have a ton like just directly on my mind, but let's see. Oh, I got a pending friend request. Let me. Christianity and philosophy. Okay, that's a good conversation. We can talk about that. Okay, I got your message, your request. I'll agree with that, and then. Do you care if I just call you on Discord? We'll see if the stream setup works. If I can hear you or anything. Oh my gosh, I haven't used Discord in forever. Maybe I'll just send you a Hangouts because usually I find Google Hangouts works better. Um, but we'll see if this can work. Yeah, let's do a quick Discord call. Um, let me. I just added you. I'm trying to see. Where is the like call button? I feel like there it should be. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay. Let's see if this works. Is it not calling? Oh, here we go. I cannot hear this. Let me do headphones. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I need to see. Try talking again. Let me see if the stream can hear you.
Test, test.
Okay, I'm seeing the desktop audio coming through. How are you? What all? How are you? How are you today?
I'm good. I'm feeling really good. Um, I saw your channel. I really like it. I was impressed at the fact that you have very thorough videos. So I wanted to see if we could possibly have a conversation. I think that'd be really awesome.
Yeah, let's do it. I have I do these over my lunch break. I work from home on Mondays, so I have a little bit of time to talk, probably until like 1 or 1:15 because I started a little late today. But yeah, what all did you want to chat about? I guess I don't know anything about your channel or what videos you've seen from me, so.
Oh, oh yeah. I'll make an introduction, I guess. So I did say that I kind of came from your Groiper video, your video on Nick Fuentes. I will clarify, I am not a Groiper.
Okay.
If I might have worded it wrong. I am in the sphere with them. I am a very conservative person, but I am not wanting to be political. And just like you said, I will not try and talk about Nick because I already do that enough, so I don't really want to talk about him in this chat. I think it would be more productive if we talked a bit about philosophy, which is something I've been interested in too. I'm 17, I'm a young guy, and actually I have a channel similar to you where I've talked maybe a little bit different. I mostly just did history. I started my channel at 13 doing Minecraft. It's switched now. So I had a very similar transition where I kind of went more deep into other topics.
Okay.
So I thought we had a lot of similarities, and I thought that was kind of cool. And for my why do stuff nowadays, I'm currently doing one about the Middle East. I try to do history with a mix of maybe some political content, live streams, maybe some hot topics. I was thinking of chatting about well, for starters, I actually had an interesting question. There's a friend of mine, and he's very close in the conversation with I guess you could call it the Nietzsche types, the BAP. I do not know much about BAP. I'm an open person. I'm open to learning new things, but I don't know anything about BAP. So I was wondering, what is your thoughts on Nietzsche philosophy? I'm very curious.
I guess Nietzsche is arguably similar to. So I guess my familiarity with Nietzsche mostly came from like Rand and Rand's critiques of Nietzsche, but I know Rand at first had very uh, positive views of Nietzsche. He promoted very much like a sort of egoism, very much like, but it's very different from Rand in certain senses too. I think she was inspired by him and then went away from him after writing the Fountainhead. Like the Fountainhead has very Nietzschean aspects, and I don't know how much you know about Rand, but I was very into like Rand's philosophy for a while. So a lot of stuff starts. My approaches to philosophy start from like that, and then I um, go from there. But I would say Nietzsche has this view of as of like man as sort of a god, and we're trying to create an Ubermensch, trying to develop man as a god, and I think it, um, or as like an individual as a god. It's a very like egoistic philosophy, and I think sometimes, and this is a critique I would have of Rand too, is we lose sort of who we are when we start making ourselves into the prime focus of philosophy and the prime as sort of gods in replacement of who we are truly are supposed. We are truly made in the image of God to worship God and to serve God and to orient ourselves that way rather than orienting ourselves to look inward for our own values and to look inward for our own purpose. I just don't think that works, and that's kind of what I found throughout life is that sort of perspective and that sort of direction of looking to ourselves as individuals, as our own values, as our like highest ideals doesn't work. Ultimately, it leads to sadness, it leads to overthinking, leads to rationalization as probably the biggest one. There's a lot of, I think, rationalization that comes along with um, with a sort of individualistic framework and individualistic view of the world. And I think there's, I mean, even within objectivist spheres, there was a huge critique of like young objectivists coming in and being ultra rationalistic. Um, and it was like, oh, that's like the big thing that you have to overcome as a young objectivist. I don't think that ever can truly overcome that. I think it never goes away. You just get more sophisticated rationalizations. Like Rand had her own issues with amphetamines and with like a whole. I don't. People don't like these critiques about her personal life. But she used amphetamines. She had an affair. Like there's a lot of things that come that I think you can go and rationalize, but you don't ultimately. Yeah, it's hard to you don't actually have a grounding for your own values. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how coherent that actually was, but those are just I guess sort of my thoughts that came from
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I can kind of understand the main idea. And is Nietzsche philosophy similar to BAP? I don't really know much about the BAP sphere. I don't identify with them, but my friend does, so I'm just kind of curious.
I don't know anything about BAP. I don't. Um,
Yeah, Bronze
I
Age
don't.
pervert.
Oh, okay. Wait, I've heard of that. That's like an internet celebrity, right?
Yeah, he's an internet guy, but yeah, the Bronze Age mindset he calls it is he talks a lot about Nietzsche, and I mean, yeah, I found it kind of interesting, but my friend told me it was like kind of like a deep dive kind of thing. You have like you will never understand unless like you go, what did they say, tripping? You have to like it feels like a deep mental psychosis. That's what he told me when he read the book. So he says it's I might describe as maybe a very analytical uh philosophy,
Interesting.
something kind of to that. I don't know, like maybe like how you stereotypically look at it, where it's just very complex. You're looking at the dynamics of the universe and you're asking very big questions. I kind of see this as I guess my own critique is I think if we believe in Christianity, I think a lot of the pathway to the questions of life are already kind of a bridge there to answer for. Like why
Mm.
are we here? I think God gives us that bridge of answering it. I don't think we need to um, over complex things. I think we have those bridges that lead us to much more simple ideas. And simplicity does not equate to dumbing down. It just may equal to, like a better pathway of finding something complex.
Yeah, I think that could make sense. I also think sometimes as like I mean you're a young guy and I'm assuming your friend is like similar. Like sometimes the first time you hear some like very complex, super involved philosophy that seems to have answers for all the questions and can really like give you this like it's like for me I guess from my own perspective like my intro to philosophy was through Rand and she had her whole framework her all these like dives into complex topics and had all these answers laid out. And it was really the first time that I'd heard all this stuff. And without life experience, without hearing a lot of different other perspectives on things, it's really easy to find yourself very convinced by this one perspective and by this one um, very complex philosophy that seems to give you all the answers. So I think young people, especially, it's very easy to, and I'm still young. I'm only 24 years old, but I find that it's very easy to like dive super deep into one philosophy and see that it has the answers to all the questions, and to kind of dismiss everything else, and be very committed ideologically to one thing, which I think has its perks. I think there is a benefit to, in the case of Christianity, being very committed to a church, or being very committed to a Christian ideology, being very committed to God. But I think we can lead ourselves astray a lot by trusting our intellect too much, and really, when we don't know a lot about a certain thing, diving deep into it and kind of ignoring other considerations when it feels like we might be um, taking all these other everything into account. We can really lock ourselves into one thing. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. Without, I don't know much about Bronze Age pervert, or in reality, I don't even know that much about Nietzsche. I think just my own. These are like kind of my thoughts from my own experience, and just learning about philosophy through Rand, and coming disillusioned with that, and finding God through that, and finding Christianity through all of that. So um, yeah, I guess yeah.
All right. Um, and then the other thing I was wondering was, and real quick too, I do appreciate you answering this. I was very curious, and I think you're really a smart guy. Kind of cool that you've been on this channel for 5 years. I started in 2021, so for like 4 years ago
Oh wow,
on
yeah.
YouTube. So we're very similar, in
Mhm.
the years. Although you are a little older than me.
Yeah, you started a lot earlier than me.
I was 13, bro. I was like,
That's crazy.
the deepest thought I had was, how can I play Minecraft while watching YouTube? That was like my deep
Mm,
thoughts back at 13. And then
true.
I found out, and it doesn't help. I don't really think it's good to do two things at once. Um, but the other thing I was wondering was, I believe you said you were, um, I don't know, clarify if I'm wrong, but like secular when you were younger.
No, I grew
What
up Catholic.
Oh, you grew up Catholic. What was your philosophy back then? What were you, and how did you change? What gave you that new perspective? You know, I'm really curious on that as a young person, because I also had a similar thing as like a libertarian, and now I'm very much changed. But I want to hear your perspective on this. Like, what was like the key? Was it something, one thing, or was it a series of things?
Yeah, I think it's hard to make it one. It's probably a series of things. I guess I can kind of just explain where I was. I guess yeah, growing up, I grew up Catholic. Did like the whole like baptism, confession, Eucharist. Went through the whole series all the way. Got confirmed, and I think I was very committed to it during high school. Was getting very involved in like church groups and all of that sort of stuff. But I started feeling disillusioned with it, because I really wanted to find God, and like have an experience with God, and see who he was, and I didn't feel like I was getting that at all. There's a huge problem of, like, I've talked about it on my channel, like the problem of divine hiddenness, and dealing with that, and feeling like I didn't, or there wasn't really, I wasn't seeing like God working in my life, or like really redirecting me, or helping me improve in certain things. Like I was a very shy kid in high school, and I really wanted, like, it was very like the very like personal issues with God, I feel like, but also just not really seeing him present, and feeling like I needed to see him there to believe in him. Um, and ultimately, I ended up I ended up reading Ayn Rand, finding Ayn Rand through like Rucka Rucka Ali. He went on the Dave Rubin channel and had this whole like long objectivist phase that he actually kind of went back from now. He yeah, he had a long phase doing that, and then I think he became disillusioned with just the objectivist online community and like deleted all of that content and just went back to what he was doing before, which was making song parodies. Um, but so
Oh, wow.
I found about him. I found out about Ayn Rand through him. Read Rand's books. Felt very inspired. Felt like I could figure out all the answers. Like I could guide my life, and using this philosophy could really achieve all my own personal values and all of that sort of thing. And ultimately, I found that that doesn't work. I think it led to a lot of rationalizations and led me into ultimately things that they would say are irrational, but I think I could rationalize things for myself, and it didn't really give me ultimate happiness and give me that feeling of fulfillment that I expected I would get from it. Like I felt like I was doing kind of all of the right things, um, thinking all the right thoughts, pursuing all the right values, but in reality, there was like something that kept me craving, wanting more out of life, and I found that I could only truly find peace when turning back to Christianity, and truly find contentment. Like I felt like I was chasing something constantly. I don't know if that makes sense, but um, yeah, I don't know. It was a more of a personal journey than a intellectual one. Even though I definitely try to make things, I try to discuss the intellectual side of things. Like I think overcoming like that problem of divine hiddenness was big. Like feeling like I can kind of see, not necessarily like, well, kind of I understood what more so to be looking for in what God is, I guess. But then also realizing kind of the limits of my own knowledge and my own ability to have the answers to everything. I think helped me kind of turn back to Christianity and realize, and like take that leap of faith and realize that that's ultimately what ended up being the fulfilling thing. And I feel like life is going a lot better now. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Just those are just my thoughts for now, I think.
Yeah. I think you mentioned about craving, about, that search. I think this is part of human nature. I think, it's both there's both blessing and a curse to it. I think humans, how we are, we do want to search for something because I don't think nihilism, and I think that's the right word to use. Nihilism is what really describes the West right now. I think people are getting tired of this nihilistic, um, like worldview that is in our culture. When you look at everything from the music to religion to really everything, it's just like it feels like um, it's just, I don't know, like there's no meaning in it. Look at the music. I mean, if you look at Frank Sinatra and then compare it to Nicki Minaj, it's not exactly. I feel like there's a loss of art now. There's a lot of art, the loss of something deeper in people, something uh great, and I think that's kind of what created a bit of the irony culture in young people. I think you've seen this before. People will be ironic in their humor. I think it's a lot to do with coping. I think it's a lot to do with trying to deal with a lot of the bad that's happened, especially like when COVID hit. People were really, like, really struck down and demoralized. But I think afterwards, this is why I think Christianity is starting to grow with younger people. I saw this in a lot of charts. Young people are shifting to the right. They're becoming more conservative. They're becoming more Christian. I think it's just because we can't sustain how we were before, where it was literally you just had to be secular, and that was so many people, and even me to a certain extent, where it was like, oh, God's just like a thing. It's a thing, exists, but like you don't have to take it seriously. But no, I feel we we don't want that, and most people, whether they admit it or not, do not like that world. And actually, they don't want that.
Yeah, I
That
think
I
there's
guess that's
this.
my analysis.
Yeah, I think there's a there was this great promise that came with the internet of just us being able to learn everything and being able to have everything that we want on demand. And I I think that ultimately what we've found is that we don't, like, it doesn't actually satisfy us. We aren't able to actually find everything that we possibly want. We just get caught in these like like we don't use the internet to, well, some people do, but we, like, in general, people don't use the internet to do all of this research and to dive super deep into things. Like, we get caught in like scrolling habits, and we get caught in pornography, and we get like we get driven back to like our base needs for comfort rather than fully being able to like take advantage of the internet for what it is and what it can be. And I think there was that great promise, and it left people kind of feeling disillusioned when we're not actually able to satisfy ourselves through this, like, it's not even just the internet. It's a very, like, we have this on demand culture and society where everything that we want we can get super easily and attain it super quickly. And I think it sort of leads us into this world where we feel like we can get everything we want and we can feel like we can do everything we want, but there's still this nagging of I'm still not happy yet. I can do anything that I want, and I can achieve anything that I want, by my own means, through my own will, through my own searching and finding on the internet or for all these other, like, there's very on demand places. Like, there's this promise of you'll be able to achieve your own happiness, you'll be able to learn things, and then we just get caught and we don't actually feel fulfilled in those moments. We don't feel fulfilled with all of this easy information, easy entertainment, sources of pleasure. And I think that, I mean, that can only be filled by God. I think, because that's truly what was made to fulfill us. All the finite earthly things of this world, even if we have all of them, we can't truly feel fulfilled. We can't truly feel fulfilled, unless we live as we were designed to be. Um, yeah.
You really pointed out well, materialism, and I think that's the great distinction. Not to always nag on how you were before, but I think you pointed out a lot of the problems with communism, but I think the best way we can also describe it, and I'll connect this well, same thing with capitalism. Here's what actually connects them in a weird way: a materialist worldview. There is this idea, and this is why the ideology started emerging. Same thing with fascism to a certain extent. You know, they started emerging after the Enlightenment, French Revolution, and those ideas spread, and they kind of slowly replaced Christianity and a lot of religion as the kind of mandate for the society and culture. And what I think they all have in common is that there is this very strong focus only on the material. And I think that's the great critique I give upon all these ideologies. They only really look at the material side of things, material conditions. You know, if you look at the start of how communism was even made, it started because material conditions weren't the best met, but religious conditions were met. That's the start of it. And then capitalism was started back when material conditions were, still kind of hard to get. You know, it was right after feudalism, I believe. It was kind of dying down due to the plague. That starts to emerge, and even, I think I even could critique fascism for that. There's a lot of things to critique, but I think one of them could also be um, this materialist edge. And I'll connect all to here. When we constantly look for this idea of we could be enlightened, we can be greater with technology, we could be greater with more stuff, more stuff from Amazon. I think, when we realize, and I'm talking just in society in general, when we realize that this is not actually making us happier, we see the depression rates going way higher, skyrocketing. We see all these problems. We see all the worst people ever on the internet, and it's only like negative stuff that we see. It's only like the worst of the worst that we'll ever see on the internet, and we get it like really curses us. And this realization, this technology this materialist pursuit has not made me happy. It's not made me greater. It's not made me a better person. It's not actually gifted me anything. And again, that's why I believe it connects with this rise in the religious pursuit, the rise in this kind of spiritual idea, spiritual pursuit now. And, I think it's incredible that so many young people are waking up. That's like very white pilling. It's very white pilling.
Hmm. Yeah, it's sort of a critique of just utopianism, thinking that we, in our arrogance, can construct a society and can organize people in such a way that we can fulfill ultimately everyone's needs, and it it never works. I think the only true utopia is when Christ returns and rebuilds the second kingdom on this earth, and we can slowly build Christ's kingdom through our own actions on the ground, like in our churches and uh, all of that. But I think anytime when we try to insert ourselves as the power that is making all of the happiness and utopianism possible, I think that can be very, very dangerous. Which I don't know. I like that about capitalism in a certain sense, where there is, in the ideal sense, like they have this focus on, we're like building this from the ground up, and we're having these small businesses like all fight and try to be the number one business. But I think America has shown, and the way the capitalist project has worked, it has shown that power still gets consolidated at the top, and there's still these winners who can insert themselves as this great power, who can, like Amazon is this great power that can just kind of control the whole market and claim to fulfill all of our needs. But in reality, we miss certain things, and people don't really end up having their needs fulfilled. We get nice, cheap goods, but that's not ultimately what we need out of life. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think there's an issue with a sort of utopian view that my thoughts and my perfectly constructed philosophy, this will ultimately get us to the ideal state. Um, Whereas
It's
I don't know if that's
philosophically
possible.
progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this progressive idea, and that's where it goes back to, right, with Thomas Paine and people similar to that of or Rousseau. We can like make everything better if we just make the conditions materially better, right? What was it? Their proposal was like blank slate. If we just educate everybody and we just allow everyone to have great resources, everyone to prosper, then we'll be fine. And that's why that's why they were critiqued by rejecting a lot of religious ideas as mattering. They rejected that, and now we can see their visions not really working out for the best.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just, yeah, it's so difficult to try to construct our own societal views and critiques of society, and building different things and building like the perfect world. I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible with our own minds. And I don't think the world is doomed by any means. I think there's good things happening in the world, and I think there's still a lot of room for growth. And we can see, like, I mean, recently, just the rise of young people finding God and finding Christianity, and we're all like, in all this time, through all this mess and through everything bad that's happening, we still have our individual families and have our individual friend groups and all of that. And if I think ultimately, I mean, focusing on that is ultimately what's going to bring us fulfillment, rather than trying to spend our time theorizing about the optimal societal structure and um, optimal way of or like thinking about the direction the culture is moving, or different things like that. But
Exactly.
yeah, I think ultimately just getting older like that, that's really become a lot more of my focus, rather than just on all the politics and social issues and all that stuff, because it shifts so much. Like even in the past, like I mean, the conversations are still the same, but everything has shifted so much, even in the past like 10 years. Just what's popularly talked about and what people think about and what's the popular opinion on things. Like everything shifts
Yep.
so much, and our social issues are. It feels so much like a distraction. Rather than focusing on politics and on the culture wars and all that stuff. Like I'd rather focus on Christianity, and maybe that mindset could be viewed as like retreatist or running from the culture. But I ultimately think for me as a newer Christian, I really need to let my theology be formed by my church and by the Bible and by reading theologians rather than focusing on the culture and focusing on societal trends and allowing those societal trends to really shape what my view of religion is.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. And the reason why I discuss on politics is one, I'm really I have a lot of information. I learned a lot. I did a lot of research. So yeah, that's like the number one thing I'm always annoyed with. People who don't know much that always like when I discuss with people, I always try to, and I'll say humbly, I've made a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I'm the most knowledgeable person in the conversations when I talk with people. And I'm 17, like I'm a really young guy. I really, I try to listen to people who are older than me because out of respect for them. But also to my point, I do actually try to do a lot of research. Research is important. I study a lot of geopolitics. I get a little political for one reason, really, because I kind of want to. I want to be very knowledgeable. I want to expand out and make myself the best I could be. I
Mm-hmm.
want to really gain more knowledge, gain more resources, and maybe convince more people, right? With good with like stuff on the basis of how can we still try and make things better? How can we fix this situation? Because how I see it, I don't actually think we can fix the world. I'm still philosophically conservative, but I do believe we can try and find a system that is compatible with Christianity. We could try and find something like a fourth position. I know some people talk about third position, which I think they refer to like fascism, or um, I'm not. I believe something like close to that area. I'm kind of with a fourth position. I think there's a way out of this all. That yeah, I still think there's problems, but I do think when you look at Russia, this is a good example. When you look at what Russia did, under Putin. I'm certainly not the biggest fan of Putin, but Russia was very much of a dumpster in the 90s, and then he made it way better. I think there is ways of getting out of crises. We kind of have to wait till things clode. I don't think we're going to last too long. I don't think the system will work. I think we're just going to have to, and I don't believe in revolution. I'm not going to try and start riots. I'll just wait till things implode and get enough resources to step in and see how we can make things better. I'm just trying to prepare myself. That's kind of my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why people aren't political. I 100% get that. Most of my family doesn't like getting political. I just do this so when I do talk about important topics with people, I'm kind of able to catch them if they're going to do something sneaky with me, or if they want to present themselves as like much more intelligent. I guess it's much more defensive than offensive because I like a good example here. I'm not trying to really explain to you my ideas. I'm just kind of having a discussion,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm perfectly fine with that. I think a lot of normies should probably not get political because I think every time um, normal people try to like get involved, they usually just say in a very bad way of arguing. Like when I was younger, I would say the worst arguments for my ideas. I just couldn't explain it right because I didn't do research. I didn't get it, and I don't blame people for not researching. They're like, we have things to do, like driving, getting a job application, right? All that stuff. People have things to do. You know,
Hmm.
Jacob is not going to be a political mastermind and understand the world while also working at McDonald's. That's just not really, he's
Mm.
just not gonna. So I think
True.
that should be left up to people who have that ability. I think normies and just people who, want to live, I think they need to live a Christian life. They need to, and my recommendation to them, they got to live a Christian life. They got to engage with, sexual morality, not immorality. They've got to make their lifestyle the best they can, clean up, make yourself presentable, and try and make your community better. If you have if you can go up to people, talk to your neighbors, convince them on, maybe I can help you in this. We can build like a house nest in the, the playground at the local school ground, stuff like that. Like get with your community and build something out of it. I don't think we can go national. I think it's great enough if we can make our local areas better. That's probably the best thing I would do. Just build churches,
Hmm.
build great communities.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with that last point, especially. Can I ask quick? What are you like? What denomination of Christian are you?
Um, I mean, it's a little complex. I would describe myself as the first century. It's not common. I believe in some of the ideas of the Old Testament. I believe in if you ever read Leviticus 23. I don't
Okay.
really have a denomination per se, but I believe in a lot of some of the old Levitical laws. But I also believe that Jesus Christ died for us.
Okay.
Um, that yeah,
Interesting.
that's what
What
I
kind
would
of church
describe
do you go
myself.
to?
um, called Church of God, COGWA, a Church of God Worldwide Association.
Okay. Interesting. No, I'm just curious. I think I guess one thing that I would. So I guess okay. I'll back up. I think it's very commendable to be like want to be very knowledgeable about things and want to learn a lot and dive into a lot of these issues. Um, I would be potentially careful about putting too much stock in your own opinion and your own research on certain things. I think you probably know a lot and are very knowledgeable. Um, I guess I don't want this to come off too confrontational. Um, but I would just be careful because I know for myself, I would dive into a lot of things and I got very deep into like libertarianism, and or I guess she wouldn't even call it libertarianism, but like objectivism and stuff like that, and being very confident in this particular ideology. But I think ultimately it stemmed from my own pride and my own feelings of arrogance. And I guess one thing, or I guess one thing I would recommend to you. Have you heard of distributism?
Distributism. I've heard of it, but I'm not like. I think corporatism is similar. That's something I'm more informed about. I believe they're very similar.
Okay.
Am I
I don't
wrong?
think they're very. I think they're slightly. Distributism is basically like it's the teachings of the social teaching and economic teachings of the Catholic Church, but I think it applies a lot of like Christian ideas to different things. And I think that can be really helpful when guiding our own political worldviews. And I think there's a lot of connections between stuff that we were talking about, like with critiques of the centralization of power and communism and capitalism and stuff like that, that I think could be helpful for you to look into if you're going to dive into politics. But yeah, and I think the helpful thing about that is it's derived a lot from a lot of different Christians thinking together about about like politics and social views, and I think it does a good job of like really focusing on this sort of ground up worldview, then kind of constructing our politics on our own and thinking from a very top down level, which is something that I would try to be careful of. Um, But basically, I think the idea of it is it balances like solidarity and subsidiarity, and I don't know how much, I don't have a lot of time because I do have to go back to work soon. But solidarity is
Oh
just
yeah.
the idea of like a communalism, a sort of view of like we're doing this together. But subsidiarity is trying to do it on the smallest level, like starting with the family, building out to the church, building out to the community, stuff like that. Um, so I think that I would recommend you look into, just to, I guess, to avoid the pitfalls of trying to do politics and do research entirely on your own, which I think can lead to rationalizations or getting caught up very much in a cultural mindset, which I would be nervous about diving into politics super deeply at a young age, I guess.
Oh, I get it. I think like I got political when I was I would say 15. I
Mhm.
had the weirdest transition, so I totally get it. I think I'm a lot more grounded because in my positions because it's been quite a while and I haven't really changed much in my worldview. But I will admit, when I was like it was like late 14 years old, I that's when I first started watching PragerU, and then I became like a hardcore libertarian. And then I became what was it? And then I became like a NatSoc. You know what NatSoc is?
Yeah, like National Socialist, like
Yeah, like somewhere by like 6, 7, maybe like 10 months later, I became a NatSoc because I really didn't like libertarianism because I was starting to become more Christian, and I was like, I got into like Andrew Tate, and I know he's like Muslim, but at the time I didn't know that. I don't think he even said he was a Muslim yet, but I was like, getting into. I wanted to be like strong, powerful, tough. I was trying to like lift weights, and I still work out, but not for that reason. And then something happened. I was like watching. I won't get into Nick, but I'll just say I watched him, and then I watched other people, and then I read some books, and then I tried to be a little bit more expansionist in my worldview. I read a lot of books. I read the Prince, and I read um, Leviathan, and then I kind of came to this conclusion now where I would say I am nationalist, but I believe Christianity is the first and foremost because I think out of everything I've learned, the number one thing was Christianity is the number one. It's above ideology. It's about the system works not with ideology, but it's about power and structure. And when you had when you had God in power, when you had Christianity as the um, strength of society, as the rock for society, everything was better. It was not because of the material conditions. Society was not better back then because of anything else, like because they were like edgy tough, and they were able to say the N word. No, it's because they were people who cared a lot about their nation. They cared about their country. They cared about their God. They cared about living. They cared about breathing. They cared about life and nature, and there was a lot to care about. And of course, like there's a lot to critique from back then. A lot of people really, bad. There's a lot to critique, but I think in general, when we look at the very religious aspects, society was way better, and that's the way of hitting that traditional lifestyle. It goes first and foremost to God and what God gives to us, blessing us with a wonderful nation. So.
yeah, okay.
But I'll make
Uh,
a promise to. I'll try not to be. I mean, I'll still be political, but I'll take your advice. I will try and be a little careful for now. And this is something even other people I've watched said. When you're younger, you get more susceptible. You can get more in trouble because you're so young. So I'm not like with the protesting. I don't believe in protesting. I'm just gonna try and learn, just talk with people, and see how things go.
yeah, okay. I Yeah, I think that's all I would recommend. Just be careful because you're like you said you got into politics at 15. You're 17, like it's been 2 years. That's really short. Like I've been a Christian for a year, and I feel like I'm like new to this, and I have so much learning to do. So I think for you, the big thing I would focus on is just continuing to learn more, just continuing to dive into things because I mean, I I think in come like a year from now, I hope that I'm embarrassed by things that I say today and embarrassed um, by how little I knew today. So I hope just continuing to develop, continuing to learn more, but really like dive into your own Christianity and dive into your own church and let yourself kind of be formed by Christianity and by your church and by those experiences and those communities rather than trying to do it all yourself and trying to learn all the politics yourself. But you're young, and it's good to be knowledgeable and it's good to dive into these things. Um, so just know, like, come a couple years from now, even the things that you might believe or be confident in now might seem ill-informed or embarrassing in 4 to 5 years. I just know that for me, just for me during college, that's how it was.
Yeah. Yeah, probably that may happen because I still admit, like, I'm only 17. I'm not even in college yet. I am trying to
Yeah,
get into college. That's my priority. So it'll be pretty exciting when I do get in college and meet with a lot of people. But that's something I got to be a little careful on because I know a lot of people, and I've seen this with, of course, the culture. That's actually what made me like this. Just seeing how like easily secular you can be. Easily you can forget everything you learn, and you're like the thing is you just can't assimilate with that. So it's about staying strong and willful to actually stay with God and to stay with your values. So
yeah, I'd agree. Allow the Holy Spirit to guide you and allow your churches to guide you rather than the culture and your own mind and convictions and things like that. Because the fact is the devil is convincing. Like he gets in and he can get you very convinced that something is your own thought, and he's I mean the reality is he's smarter than each of us, but through the grace of the Holy Spirit we can overcome those temptations and can find God through all of this. But yeah, those are just that's all my thoughts. But I do have to go soon, so I'll probably let you go and
all
then
right.
close out my video. But I don't know if you have any closing thoughts or anything you wanted to add at the very end.
For the sake of viewing time restraint, I'll go quick here. I'll just say I want to thank you. I watched that video of him critiquing you, Nick, and I was like, yeah, but also this guy's like 19, and I was like that actually. I was like very similar to objectivists maybe when I was younger because I didn't really care much about religion at 14, and I was like a libertarian like right by the end of my of being 14. And I was all about like, we look at the free market and America's great. You can't ever critique anything about it because shove, you live in a first world country. But then it's also, you know, I think it's really cool that you've become very knowledgeable. You've learned, you've grown, and you're into math. I mean, you did like what you have like 1 hour series or something about what was it? Polynomials? I forget what you were doing.
Oh, I'm doing I did a introduction to proof series, and then I'm doing an intro to number theory series now.
Yeah. Listen, I'm like trying to get into like a high GPA. I'm trying to what was it for SAT? I'm doing another SAT test because I didn't like my previous score.
Hmm.
So I might watch a few videos, if I need to for some of the questions.
Yeah, we'll
Math,
see. That it
yeah.
might. I don't know how applicable some of this is more like college level like proofs. So I don't
Oh,
know how applicable that'll be for SAT stuff. But yeah, if you have
oh,
any questions, feel free to reach out and I can provide answers or
yeah.
explanations of things for sure. I really enjoy math, so but I do appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on and appreciate all the compliments. I I think there's still a lot more learning that I have to do. I think like I'm doing these videos and I appreciate the compliments on like the research and the explanation and all that like and like the intelligence, but I there's so much more for me to learn. I just realize I realize that more and more the older I get is just how much I'm still ignorant, which is crazy. Um, like just I mean starting to dive into like theology more. There's I mean there's so much here. Um, there's so much here that there is to learn, and we have a we have an infinite God who is um, infinitely complex or like infinitely like contemplatable, which is yeah, so interesting. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate having you on. I'll probably close up out the stream now, but yeah, thank you so much for the conversation.